Hey everybody, I'm Greg Sowell and welcome to the Automation Journey. With me, as always, is Justin Burdine.
Hello, hello.
Oh, you look so happy and chipper this morning, Justin. I love it.
I'm excited. I'm excited what we're going to talk about today. It's going to be good stuff.
Finally, we're pulling this thing out. So we wanted to talk about Ledger Pro. So when we talk about Ascender a lot, it's not just Ascender. We're building kind of an ecosystem here with a lot of different things, and one of them is Ledger Pro, which is custom developed inside of CIQ, which I think is novel and unique. So this is Ascender Ledger, right? So obviously we're going to start with the nice, pretty graphics. Justin, how often do you interface with pie charts and graphs?
Far too much for my comfort.
For your comfort. I mean, there's kind of the old IT joke. This is always here for management whenever they need to take a look. But honestly, it can give you some insightful stuff, right? So starting at the start, you could see how much information, how many hosts, changes, facts, packages. I guess we should probably start at the start with Ascender Ledger. So essentially, Ascender automation platform generates a tremendous amount of logging information, right? And while that is great, it is kind of difficult to parse. And so one of the things we found early days was that we were, pushing folks over to, like people using kind of AWX derivatives. We would say, hey, you could look at Splunk or something like that. And honestly, Splunk to consume some of this stuff on some of the larger customers we were working with was $1 million to $2 million.
Really
right?
expensive.
Because it is a crazy amount of information that comes through. And so it's kind of a hard pill to swallow.
And just to add on to what you were saying, I think one of the things when we were really early on talking about this kind of thing was we got a lot of feedback from customers that there was good information inside of AWX, but it was really only usable to the administrators. And I think everybody was kind of saying, how can we make this more valuable to our application owners? And so that's where we started saying, well, that's really where all the money is as far as the budgets to be able to purchase tools like this. So we were really kind of partnering along IT groups to say, hey, let's help you find ways of bringing value all the way down to your application owner customers inside those companies. So just wanted to add that on because the context, I think, helps us understand kind of why we're going down this path.
And inside of Ascender, that while that information is collected, by default, it's there for 90 days. And after that, it's just gone, right? So it is a little bit ephemeral in Ascender itself. But also, it's not that easy to find all the bits and bobs and pieces that you actually want. And you certainly can't generate reports and very easily manipulate that data. So this gives you the opportunity to really take control of all of that, which to me is extremely powerful. So we said the data that it's gathering, right? So by default, it's going to be doing facts. And so for those of you familiar with Ansible, there's an option to gather facts. I'm doing air quotes. I know you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes for you. And essentially that means, hey, whenever you're connecting to a server, capture a whole bunch of kind of generic information, right? So it'll be like, I don't know, things like, let me pick on the host section, let me pick one of the random ones. It'll be like disk utilization, partitions, mounts, as well as all of your hardware info. But it could also be, what operating system is this thing running, right? So you can see this one is Rocky Linux 9.4. So all of this really good information is being gathered potentially, and now this gives you the ability to actually collect that and do interesting things based off it. Well, I mean, you can do simple stuff like search for various information, right? I could create a filter. You see some IPv4 addressing right here. Say I wanted to see it off of all of my systems. I could add a filter. We'll say type facts, and which facts I want to do IPv4 addressing, and then I can find in my infrastructure all the IPv4 addresses, and this is up to date, right? It's showing you the most recent, fresh information on all of that. That's cool, right? And I can certainly see this for information gathering, some quick troubleshooting. I mean, how would you see kind of just using this generic facts area, Justin?
I just think being able to dial into specific things that you want to see, knowing, especially when you're troubleshooting and trying to figure out what's going on in your systems, seeing consistencies on systems, being able to kind of start from the top and dive down to troubleshoot, I think that's invaluable. There are tools that will do this, but to have this as part of your automation, as a default part of your automation, I think becomes a really powerful thing.
Yeah, for sure. You want to find all of the Rocky 9.3 hosts that exist in there, right? Say my standard is you should always be on the latest version of Rocky. So 9.4 is where we're at. So if I can just do a quick search for anything 9.3, I can find all this stuff like instantly that's non-compliant, right? So I can really quickly do that kind of stuff. But to me, that's great. I essentially see kind of this interface as troubleshooting, or you're just doing some quick information gathering. But when you want to actually really use it, that's where kind of the reporting function comes in for me. Like, so in that example of I'm looking for all Reiki 9.3s, I could create a report looking for, hey, all the distro versions that equal 9.3, right? So here you could see just kind of a generic, here's a list of all of my hosts with, some kind of generic information that might be useful for me. I'm going to go back to the report section up here, and I'm going to edit this. So if I wanted to, I could change this filter here. I could add an additional filter that's looking for the Rocky version. I could say equals to 9.3. And now I can run a report and find any hosts that are, say, non-compliant, right? Or that meet this very specific criteria. I could do compound filtering. I can get very granular in here, essentially almost to the level of regex matching. So I can get crazy granular if I want to. The kind of stuff that ChatGPT is going to have to help me construct a filter for, kind of those sorts of levels. But I can also really easily say, hey, add a column, remove a column, move it up and down in the list. Hey, what is the display name for this various column? And then how do I sort this? So it makes you, or rather it gives you the ability to create reports on this information really quickly and simply. And honestly, it's repeatable. It's right in here, and I can run that. I can export that stuff of all the formats that you want. But one of my favorite features, genuinely one of my favorite features, is, say, completing some kind of compliance report for security, or maybe your auditing department, or any of those other folks. Once I create the report, I can come in here and I can schedule it to run at whatever interval, and I don't have to think about this thing anymore, right? So hit the security team every Monday morning, like send them their report, the compliance team once a month, whatever it happens to be. This could be here, and you can have it just generate and go out to those teams.
Wow.
So to me, it's one thing to gather the data, but now I can really easily kind of choose what data to show and then ship that stuff off. Entirely invaluable.
Yeah. And this, I can say this came directly from the work that Jimmy and I did probably 10, 12 years back at a government hosting company, where we were dealing with auditors on a look, I think it's every 3 months or 6 months. We would sit down with auditors, and basically they would do these spot checks, and we quickly realized that the best way that we could, and this is mainly like Jimmy's hard work, was building these types of reports, but we were doing it manually with scripts. But to be proactive with your auditors, to be able to say, hey, look, I've already thought about all the questions you want. They're always going to find a gotcha. They're always, that's their job. But if you come at them from the very beginning to show them that you've been proactive about security, you've won the hearts and minds of that person, because they're primarily there assuming that you're trying to do as least amount of work as possible, or whatever. They're there to kind of catch.
They're not wrong,
right,
Justin.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but in reality, like it comes down to, if you show them you've been proactive and say, no, I get what you're trying to say. I know, I'm putting myself in your shoes. You're showing that empathy. All of a sudden, the demeanor completely changed when we had, from one audit to the other once we implemented this. And now that we have a tool that does this, now, you get rid of all that custom scripting that we used to have to do, or that Jimmy did back in the day. It just makes the whole situation so much better. So having a tool like this is, I think, tremendously valuable.
Yeah. I mean, to me, compliance and security was something that was always, I don't know, it felt a little scary. It's kind of like when I drive by a cop. I know I'm going the speed limit, but it still makes me nervous, right? Like somehow I'm going to screw this thing up. And so this kind of, I don't know, it, as Justin and I were talking about, you've got this this base level of simmering anxiety. And so it just tends to lower that down a little bit, because I've got all this stuff taken care of. So anybody with compliance concerns, reporting restrictions, hey, this is the tool for you. So let's move on. I don't know if this is the logical next step, but it always feels like it to me. We're not only gathering facts, but Jimmy in his infinite wisdom said, you know what? I mean, because it started as fact gathering, right? We just wanted to be able to parse that information. Step 2 was, hey, while we're dumping all this logging stuff, it actually dumps every task that ever completes. And in those tasks, it will tell you if something changes, right? That's kind of one of the core functions of Ansible, right? Is kind of its idempotent nature. And whenever it runs a task against a host, it'll say, hey, okay, I didn't change anything. or it'll say changed. I actually had to make an adjustment. And so all of those changes, again, I'm doing air quotes. I don't know why I keep doing air quotes, guys. You can't see me. But I'm doing that. But all of those changes actually get logged into the system here, right? So you can come in here and see all the changes that happen. And again, that filtering that we talked about earlier, all that's available to you here as well, right? Not only that, but I can save these filters. Not only can I save them for just ease of reuse, but you're going to see that come up in just a second for alerting. We actually can utilize those for sending very granular alerts. But the cool thing is, even though there's a change in a specific host, I can actually pop in and I can take a look at and see kind of what the change was, right? So it can often give me diffs based on the information coming back from the system. So that can be extremely useful, right? Like a lot of systems are kind of in a lock state. There really shouldn't be any adjustment on any of this infrastructure, especially if I'm doing kind of compliance enforcement, like I'm running hey, this is how this should be configured. I'm running that on a regular basis. If I ever see a change in that, I should get an alert, right? Because these systems should be set in stone. There shouldn't be making changes. Obviously, sometimes there's break fix or something like that, and we're going to make adjustments. But I need to know about all that stuff. And now you have the opportunity in here to not only track those changes, see those changes, but you can alert on those changes as well.
Yeah, just curious on, so this is just to confirm, this is making changes on the automations that you're running, correct? This is tracking those changes?
Right. So anytime any piece of automation runs that actually registers a change, it's going to pop into here. It's going to be visible to you and theoretically have the ability to alert. I mean, you don't literally want to alert on every single change. You're going to go crazy, but you theoretically can pick and choose any of those in there that you would like to.
Fantastic.
Yeah, pretty powerful. All right, so we've gathered a bunch of information. We're looking at changes. That to me kind of aggregates, I don't know if there's a natural flow to this. This is just the way it works in my brain. To jump over to kind of the host section. I know I kind of jumped ahead earlier, but this essentially will, all the host, all that information that gets gathered and stuck into the database, right? So a sender generates those logs, this parses them, puts them into the database, here and available. It's going to define all the various hosts that it's seeing stuff come from in here. Not only that, again, this is kind of like the report. We get some various information, but there's also some extra cool stuff in here, like it's tracking how many changes have made per host, right? How many facts have been gathered per host, how many packages, all that good stuff. But something else that's interesting right here is you can see all the errata. And yes, we are for enterprise Linux flavors. We are pulling the errata data and making it available on a per host basis. So we're going to dive deeper down that rabbit hole, but you can really manipulate this errata data and look at it in various ways. But essentially, again, I'm just going to pick on this very first server here. We do have all this good information, right? Like kind of all the hardware stuff, which to me is awesome for doing migrations. Because a lot of times the recommended best practice, or I'd say good practice, because I try not to say best practice because it's different for everybody, but good practice is, say I'm on Rocky 8 and I want to move to a Rocky 9 box, is to build up a Rocky 9 with whatever specs you require and then just migrate the data over, right? And this right here gives us all of that physical hardware specifications, right? I can see how much space is actually being utilized. So you know what? If this drive is almost full, maybe on the next one, I'm actually going to give a little bit more space, right? So we kind of use this for our base or kind of golden VM, I guess, if you will, whenever you're building the next system. Even then, if you're doing the migration, you even have kind of the IP information. Oh, by the way, I probably didn't mention it, but there's a full API on the back end of this. Wow. So all this is available, and you could even use this as a CMDB if you wanted to, like a configuration management database, something that tracks all of your hosts and various things like that. So it can be extremely useful in that respect. I'm going to click on this little packages tab here. So earlier, I was talking about how you've got all these various packages. You can see the errata and stuff like that. And here it's showing me per host all that information. Of course, the packages section, it's aggregated for all hosts, but here I can actually dive down and look at an individual one. And this may not seem like crazy earth-shattering until you kind of notice this base diff line, or rather baseline diff option right here. So what we do is have the ability to create, say, a golden image for, I don't know, maybe this is Rocky 9 web server, right? You know what that should look like for every web server, right? It's going to have a set amount of packages. set amount of services, all that various stuff should be in there. And now you can create a baseline. So if you look at this one, by default, the baselining's on. So I'm seeing there's 73 entries total. If I turn baseline diff off, it's going to show me all of the packages that are on there. So 489. You can see that's quite a difference, right? So really, essentially what this is doing is this saying, what is making this server unique off the baseline, which is awesome, right? So all of the standard stuff that should be there, I don't really care about that, right? Because it should be there. This is just showing me what is actually unique about this system, which to me is killer, because so many times, like say you're doing a migration, what actually is the special stuff about this? Now I can immediately see all that, or take it a little bit further, what is on here that absolutely shouldn't be, right? So if all this stuff should be meeting up to the golden image and you see one package pop up, that might actually be a cause for alarm.
So just to be clear, those 73 packages you had there, that's the delta between your server and a default install of Rocky 9.
100%. Well, I say our default install.
Correct.
The one that we say, hey, this is the baseline, this is the golden image. It's not necessarily what comes straight out of the package, because we add some extra stuff, like I think we do like the VMware tools, because this is on a VMware cluster and some various things like that. So it can absolutely be customized for your environment to match exactly what you want.
That's me leading you to that button on the right, that make baseline, because that's, if my understanding is correct, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, but so you can basically take an image that you have created that is maybe your golden image for your specific company. You can click make baseline, and then that is now what your systems that, let's say you have the golden image and then you install Apache and other things on that to make that your web server, you then can see that delta between your golden image, not necessarily the actual default Rocky. It really can be kind of anything. Is that my understanding correct?
You are 100% correct, sir.
That's fantastic.
Which I like a lot. I like that a lot. That's something that, I don't know, I've been looking for a really long time. Or I say I've been looking for. Oftentimes, my security teams have been looking for a really long time to make that. Yeah, it's not necessarily something that I'm always looking at with a microscope, but there are teams in my environment that absolutely are.
I've often found it's not about what I want; it's what the security team wants. So,
what's good for the whole, Justin?
Exactly.
What's good for the whole?
Exactly.
Well, that leads us over to the services tab. So we gave you the song and dance about baselining, and guess what? We do the exact same thing for services, right? So you can check and see, hey, is there something new or different on here service-wise? And that can even go down to state, right? So we can be watching for, is the state, what our expected state for this thing is, right? So like, is the Git-T running on the GitLab, or Git-T server, right? It's Git-T is just kind of a lightweight Git service. And so that should be theoretically running on here. Is it? Yes, no. If it's not, it probably should be. And so that's going to pop up here and show us if any of that stuff is off. We were talking about errata as well. And here it is, breaking it down per host so I can see all the various pieces. And errata is not just like my crazy, super high critical vulnerabilities, right? It can be enhancements. It can be bug fixes as well. So I can see all of that information. Cool thing is I can drop it down. It'll show me all the CVEs associated with this, all the fixes, and actually give me a pretty good description of what's going on. So I can do more investigation if I want, right over here on the right, or, I can just take this kind of base information. And you know what, as an operator, maybe this isn't like the most pressing thing for you to watch for, but again, probably in your environment, you have some compliance, or if you have a security team, they're going to be looking at this stuff. You know what, if you are the compliance and security team, like a lot of us are, you wear every hat, not just multiple hats, then this information can actually make your life a lot simpler here.
And I guess an extra use case on that is we could give users, if I had this in my environment, I could give my security team a view into this. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that they basically then have access directly to the data that you're seeing as well, which I know the minute I've had that be a really helpful thing in the past, but we had to do it very manually. We had to build reports and things like that we would share, or we'd give them a view, like a read-only view into VMware so they could kind of see the settings. I've got to think that this is even more exciting, would be more exciting to a CISO or somebody in your security department, so they can go and look at the actual data that you're seeing from your hosts.
Yeah, teach a person to fish kind of thing, huh?
Yep. Yeah.
That way you're not like this single point every time having to do everything, just.
Well, yeah, because I remember thinking back. So much of my time was preparing information for other people, and if that information is already presentable, and I can give somebody a view into that, this is great. Then we become a team. We're working together towards an end instead of me resenting the fact that I have to take 2 hours out of my week every week to generate reports. This is I don't know. I'm looking at this thinking this is saving me tons of time.
Oh yeah, or sometimes those reports would be once a month or once every 6 months.
Right.
And if it's that amount of time, I've literally forgotten everything I need to do.
Oh,
so.
It's out of date, 24 hours later.
Yeah. Or at least my brain is out of date 24 hours later.
Right.
Minimum. Yeah.
Exactly.
So in the errata section, again, we have like some nice charts in here that can show you some cool stuff. Another cool thing I thought about, or rather I like about this, is if there's something I don't want to see, I could just click on it, right? So say I'm not really worried about, anything below important and critical. I could really just get like kind of quick stats on here, which can be presented to management or security or various things like that. So I don't have to kind of work really hard for this. I can just make kind of pretty images and ship those off if I want to. I don't know that I would be doing a whole lot of this, but I like options, right? So if I need it, it's there. But really, what you want to do is come over here to the packages section, right? So I can search for specific packages. I can look for, right, bug fixes, right, on the ACL portion here. And I can drop down, and it's actually showing me how many hosts actually have that issue. So I can figure out which specific host, and I can click on it, and it's going to actually take me over to the section where it fully fills out a filter for me, which is pretty cool, right? Like it's created a nice filter. I can save that stuff and I can reuse it for later if I want to. But it'll show you the very specific host or hosts, and then as well as the package name. So again, it comes down to it's essentially generate reporting for you so you can pull all that information. So I think we actually have it in the errata section, CVEs now. If we come in here, we can search for very specific CVEs as well. And then I can look and see, hey, are any of my hosts actually susceptible to this? So there are so many ways of getting at the same information, and we try and make it convenient for you to do it the very specific way. So I can look per host. I can go and look at the packages. I can look for the CVE specifically and find any hosts in my environment that might be susceptible to this thing. So really, we want to give you every avenue that's most convenient for you to get at the information you want as quickly as possible.
And that's hugely helpful because so many times you're just coming in with shreds of information that, may not even align, but just by being able to quickly zip back and forth to different pieces that you have, it ultimately brings you to what you really want to find, which I find hugely helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked a little bit about packages, right? So here let me get rid of that filtering. That's the cool part. The filtering kind of persists through, and I can just remove it if I need to. But again, show me all the packages I have available in all of my systems, so I can do reporting in there. Something cool that Jimmy added, and he always tells me to make sure that I show this part off, is the log portion as well, right? So with packages, I can see when stuff was, if you look over here to the right, added or removed, right? So you can actually see when things are put on a system, removed from a system. All that good stuff in here is available for you to, oh, and guess what? Here's all of our filtering again, right? So all of that filtering you're accustomed to, that's something that I don't know if I've made it very clear. I like unified interfaces where everything is the same. So if I go to a new tab, the filtering is the same, the searching is the same. I want that I don't want to have to reconfigure my brain every time I go to a new tab. And so many interfaces aren't like that. So I love that we have parity across all of this. Same thing with services. We can come into the services here. So I can see all the services that we have on various systems. This is going to be pretty beefy. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be in here, but also gives you state and status. And oh, guess what? We also have logging in there. So you can see when something was changed state. And this is going to be not necessarily just when we run a piece of automation, like when the sender runs and actually changes something state. No, like if the state changes, we gather information, it's actually going to be gathering this data as well. So if a service changed, say an admin goes in there and stops, I don't know, the syslog service, this will actually get pulled in via the gather facts information and pushed in here. Same with packages. say for example, somebody comes in, and this is one of the demos Jimmy likes to run. I believe it's in one of his test boxes. He's got it so that it will look for the telnet package. So anytime somebody adds telnet in there, whether it's manual or via automation, it'll actually see that and be able to generate an alert on it, right? So I could see if somebody manually did that based on, oh, now I run Ascender later, it's going to gather that information, push that data in here, and I'll see that this new package magically arrived, and we can alert or do some action on there, which to me is pretty cool, that it's actually going to see even if somebody goes in there and manually manipulates a package or a service.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugely helpful just to know what's being done on those systems.
Booyah. All right, to me, this feels like it leads into the alerts. I've talked about alerting over and over and over. We have a couple of concepts. Providers, essentially, where do you want to send the alerts to, right? You can send it via email or you can do webhook. Tried and true email. Some people scoff at this. I still like getting alerts via email. Am I just an old person at this point?
No, because I do it because you can search. You can go look at historical stuff and search through it, from my email, which is where I spend a good chunk of my time. The webhooks are cool. I mean, I'm assuming we can use those to tie into things like Slack and other messaging systems. Yeah,
one of my favorite ways that we actually use these webhooks is being able to send. I'm just going to click the create new provider. I'm going to say webhook next. I like being able to send to Ascender. And Jimmy will send it over in GitHub or GitLab format. It doesn't matter. The cool part is I can create a job template inside of Ascender, and this will automatically supply me this information. So if I see an alert happen, very specific criteria for me, I can actually have it ship off and fire a job, which is pretty dope. Another thing we can do is send it over to React, which is our flavor of event-driven automation, right? So you've got a rule book. It's listening for webhooks, and it will pump that information in and run it through that list, fire off various jobs, various automations, call to Ascender. You can do almost anything you can imagine. So it gives you the ability to not only just send kind of a generic alert, or like you said, like a Slack message or something like that, but I can also kick off very complex orchestrations, or I can do very simple automations if I want.
So stuff like self-healing websites and things like that. If I see a web server go down, we're gonna do some triage, preventative triage to try to bring that system back up. Maybe add another step or two that tries to confirm that once it's up. If it's not up, then notifies and wakes up, the people on call. Something like that.
100%. Or it could be something as simple as Jimmy's got one in here where, again, in the packages section, he created a filter that's looking for the telnet package. Anytime that telnet package discovered, right, like it sees a telnet package, it just sends it over to React, and React connects to that system and removes the telnet package.
That's great.
So it can be something as simple as that. So I wouldn't necessarily call it self-healing, but it's very reactive. So it will see a situation and it will immediately kind of react to that thing. But it could be, because we talk a lot about server stuff. I'm a network engineer, so I've got that network caveman brain, and so I always think about, I see some event happen. I see some BGP log come through where a peer went down. Well, I can then kick off automations to do all of that troubleshooting for me, right? All of the manual testing from the various probes, all kinds of good stuff. For me, I look at this as I used to get woken up a lot at 3 a.m, and it was kind of, I don't know. It got to where I literally would have anxiety the second I would hear my ringtone. When I left one of those positions, I actually had to change my ringtone. That's how bad it was. But things like this can not only do all that manual troubleshooting that you would have done groggily at 3 a.m, but it can present that to the first on-call engineer, I should say, and even make suggestions of, I believe this is the problem. Take a look here. So it can take a lot of those human pieces out and potentially let you stay asleep or let you have that vacation interrupted, or rather uninterrupted, or go to Christmas without taking calls. I've done that as well. I think everybody probably has at some point.
Yeah, and I also see this saving massive amounts of time, because when I was doing some large hosting for some corporate websites, we had a whole run book of what happens when it goes down. And there was like 20 steps to troubleshoot where the actual problem was. And I could totally see building a playbook that literally populates with all those same steps that we had to basically, so you're waking up to literally a log of saying, this, not this, not this, not this. This is the most likely thing, and maybe check this other thing. And that way, you literally have saved yourself maybe 20 minutes of manually doing all that because it's already done that and pointed you in the direction. So this to me is really, really exciting to see that happen. And I'm assuming with those webhooks,
All right, let me.
can we tie into like ServiceNow and then maybe put all this information into a ServiceNow ticket?
I don't know how complex it would be to do that on
Or you could
straight
do maybe.
webhook.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible. What I would do is I would use, and I've done this successfully many times with Ascender, is once I call automation, have it actually craft the ticket. I mean, you can have it open a ticket, make updates to the ticket, do all kinds of various actions to it. But the cool thing about doing that via automation as opposed to this is I can connect to lots of different systems, gather lots of extra information, and apply that, right? So say, for example, in the networking scenario, if I wanted to do a whole bunch of extra testing and trace routes and all that good stuff, I can't do that from Ledger, right? Because Ledger is really just information gathering, or collection, whatever is sent to it, it can use. If I call automation based on this information, right, then I'm Ledger saying, oh, here's an event, I need to call the automation. Well, the automation can actually go do all that extra testing, aggregate all that information, and put that in the ticket as well, right? So it can actually do all this additional investigation, put that in there. So it's very much enriching the ticket and all of that experience. So to me, in my head, like that would be the way I would go with it. I'm not saying you can't do it this way, but it just seems like you're adding so much additional functionality if you, just call the automation and let it do all that extra collection and stuff. Yeah, dude. So
wow,
I am super stoked about Ledger. I think the one thing I haven't done is beat the drum of Ledger Pro enough. I need people to see this thing. I want people to get as excited about it as I am, because I think they will.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I so much of this, I'm projecting kind of my past life of doing all this and thinking, oh my gosh, this if I had this even 5 years ago, this would have been a game changer, So that's why I'm so excited to see that we've got something out there that I think will really help people. I think it'll change the way that they do a lot of work and the way they think about how they approach work. Because again, the more information you have in our job, the better, right? We can make informed decisions. We can do all these things that we do, but just on a higher level. So I feel like we're abstracting a lot of the stuff that lives on servers. We're now kind of adding an abstraction layer to kind of gather that up and say, okay, now we've made this far more consumable. If you have 100 servers, 10,000 servers, all of that just becomes much more manageable when you can bring it up into a tool like this. It gives you insights and views into kind of everything that's going on. So really excited.
And something else that I may not have really fully explained is any AWX derivative is generating logs that Ledger Pro can consume. So that means if you're using our Ascender product, that's great. If you're using straight AWX and you want to be able to take advantage of all this, guess what? You can. If you're using Red Hat's AAP, guess what? You can point it towards Ledger Pro and it will consume all that information and you'll have all this functionality there as well. So I say we, I'm doing the royal we. Jimmy has constructed this in such a way that we can consume all that information from any of these and make it just as useful and insightful for you. So don't think, you have to just completely switch to everything. I'm actually going to tell you, you probably should, and I would love for you to do that, but you don't necessarily have to, right? So if you really just need all this extra reporting and functionality, give us a shout, right? Like it's available, it's there, and we can help you do all that good stuff. Yeah. Dude, I'm fired up about automation. I've been doing automation for a while now. I love it. I know, Justin, you're super into it. We love helping people out. I mean, that's one of my things. I like to think of myself as like Thomas the Tank Engine. I want to be very useful. And I like helping people solve problems. So if you have problems, you have questions, you're late in your automation journey and you want to take a look at the product and when you want us to help you, you can. If you're early in there and you just need somebody to help you kind of get off the runway, we're happy to help you with as much or as little of that as possible. We love supporting our products. We actually do a pretty darn good job of it. I know you're not supposed to toot your own horn, but if you don't, nobody else will, right? So we do a pretty darn good job of it, and we'd love to help you folks out.
Absolutely. So if you're Thomas, does that make me Percy? Or am I the mayor?
I think you're Cranky the Crane, bro.
Oh, okay. I'll discuss that in a later episode.
Well, you're enormous, dude. So
oh, I see.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
Gotcha.
He's a little cranky. I'm just saying. All right,
Greg. Well, thanks.
Thanks, Justin. Awesome. Thanks, everybody listening. We'll see you next time.